Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all for the 169th episode of Creative Online Weekend Talk. I am Supriya Naika, your host for the session. Creative is registered, trust, and created platform for knowledge sharing and building constructive thinking across diverse domain. Our tagline, Knowledge Square, sharing knowledge increases our knowledge, reflects our commitment to exploring meaningful topics behind conventional academics. Our weekend talks are held every Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m. on Zoom platform, and we live stream on our YouTube channel Creative GBD, making them accessible to a wider audience. Today's topic is an overview of amphibians with a focus on Karnataka's rich biodiversity. This fascinating session will take us into the world of amphibians, highlighting their ecological importance and Karnataka's contribution to global biodiversity. We are delighted to introduce today's our speaker, Mr. Amoga Varsha M., an independent researcher currently pursuing his undergraduate studies in biology and education at Azim Premji University. His passion for biodiversity and research is truly inspiring, and we are excited to learn from his insight and expertise. Welcome you all. Welcome Mr. Amoga Varsha for this session, and we hand overing to you. Over to Amoga.
Yeah, thank you. Can you all hear me?
You are muted. 1 minute. Okay. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. So hello all. Thank you for joining. So I'll probably do the talk for about 35 to 40 minutes. Then we'll keep the rest of the time for question and answers. Uh, so I'll just share my screen. Am I visible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so to introduce myself, like you mentioned, I'm Amoga Varsha. I'm currently doing my bachelor's from Azim Premji University. I'm doing double degree program where I'm doing my biology and my education studies. So I mainly work on amphibians, a bit on snakes. Today I'll be giving you a very brief introduction to species, or let's say just introduction to amphibians of Karnataka. So to start my talk, I'll just figure out a way to see the chat box. Okay, it's okay. So I hope you guys can unmute yourself. Uh, just by asking, I'll start my talk just by asking this question: what do you think are the amphibians?
Dual nature.
Sorry.
Dual nature.
which which can survive both on land and in waters.
Okay. Any other points? So yeah, so in our school we would have studied that amphibians are things which can survive both on water and land. Uh, Coming to its term, actually, it's the wrong definition. I'll tell you guys why it's the wrong definition. So even we can go into water and come out. Even crocodiles can stay in water and they live in land. So there are a lot of creatures which spend some time in water and some time in land. But amphi means dual life, which means two different kind of lives. So I'll come more into that in the next slides. Just talking a bit about it, we all know that amphibians have two different life stages, one as tadpoles and amphibians. So amphi comes from that. So some of the other points are that they're cold-blooded animals. You guys would know what is cold-blooded and warm-blooded. They have dual life, meaning two different kind of life stages, and their skin is moist, and there can be some amount of gas exchange through their skin. And we all know that they breathe through their skin. It's even though it's not entirely true, there can be some gas exchange. They do have nose like how we have. Okay, so when we say amphibians, we mainly know about frogs and toads, which are around us, but there are more creature which are also which also falls under amphibians. So even though we mainly talk about frogs and toads in this talk, I'll just briefly introduce you guys to few other creatures. There is three sections in amphibians. First is the anura, which we'll be talking about. Second would be salamanders and newts. They look almost like lizards. I'll show you guys some photos in a while. And then there is one more class called as Sicilians, which look somewhat like earthworm. So we all know how frogs look. We would have seen this around our house. Then we have something called as toads, which are also very similar to frogs. So next, when we talk about salamanders and newts, unfortunately we don't get them in Karnataka. You would have to go to Himalayas. In the Himalayas, we have around two species of them. And there is one more creature here with multiple color. This is called as axolotl, which is a South American creature, which is also an amphibian. Even though we don't get them in wild, it's very common among pet trade in the recent time. If you go to any pet shop in Bangalore, you would find these. So they are also amphibians, but they don't live in land and water. They almost completely live in water. Then we have something called as Sicilians. They're little bigger than earthworms, and they can be found in rainforests. Karnataka has around 11 species. Even though we'll not talk much about this, I'll basically give an introduction to them. So jumping into Anura, which are frogs and toads, we basically have around 7,500 species of them worldwide. So most of us, when it comes to frogs, would have not actually observed them around our house. First image might be the frog marriage. Like most of you might know, it's a very common tradition, even in coastal Karnataka, where they marry these frogs when it doesn't rain. Even though I'll not dive too deep into it, I just wanted to bring out few points where you might have observed frogs. This is again toads, which they're getting married. And one more very popular thing, even though very few people eat them in Karnataka, it's a very common practice for people around Kumta to see people catching these in agricultural field and exporting them. Mainly, it used to go to Goa. Now it has come down a lot. They're called jumping legs, which is a very popular dish. And we would have also seen something like this in most of the taxis and most of the restaurants. It's one of the beliefs that it brings good luck. So these are few places where you might have seen amphibians, uh, mainly frogs. So giving a brief introduction to frogs, most of them are carnivorous. Even though there are few herbivore species, they're not from India. There is few nectar feeding species from South America. And fertilization is external. This is among all the amphibians, and majority of them lay eggs. And vocalization is present in majority of the species. Vocalization meaning ability to make the sound. So okay, jumping into the next, very brief morphology. When we say frogs, how many hands do you guys think it has? Or how many fingers do you guys think it has?
Front limb 4, back limb 5.
Okay, yeah,
Each.
that's very accurate. So yeah, front would have four like this, different fingers, and back would have five. And when it comes to call is very important for amphibians. One, because the sex ratio in amphibians is 1:10, meaning uh, briefly briefly there is 10 males for one female frog. So call becomes very important for amphibians, and in most of the species only males do the vocalization, females don't do the vocalization. But we are seeing more and more species, more and more females doing calls in species nowadays. So it might also be a lack of information, but majority of the time when you hear frogs, it's generally the males. Just play a call. hopefully that was audible to all. In case if I was not audible, just let me know. And
No,
second,
we are not hearing.
oh, okay, I'll try to play it again.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just play it again. Yeah, I hope that was audible.
Yes.
This one is not. I'll just play the next one. So one of the ways you can identify a frog or a toad is all of them have distinct different calls. So different species have different calls. That's one of the ways to identify them. I'll just play one more call. Yeah, this you would have heard around your house, which is from a very common species. Anyway, moving on, one more call. Yeah, so call is very important for amphibians because of the reasons which I just mentioned. And we all know that they go through this cycle, which is also called as metamorphosis. So most of the amphibians lay eggs and they develop into tadpoles. They live in water and then they become froglets and they become adult frogs. But there is again exception to this. This is a species which is called as leaping frog from Karnataka, from Western Ghats. There is multiple species. I'm just going to mention the family. So tadpoles of this species don't live in the water. Instead, they live around the water, meaning on the rock near the wood patches. They feed on algae and they're around lakes and rivers or streams, but they don't live in water. Reasons being, in the monsoon season, there will be already a lot of tadpoles in the water. These have developed to feed on the land, but it doesn't mean that they don't have any predators outside water. This is how an adult frog would look. But there is also, okay, I think there'll be more photos. I'll talk about the species again. And there is again exception to few species. This is again eggs, and there is a frog developing inside. In these species, what happens is there is egg, and the tadpole just develops within the egg. It doesn't come out of the egg. They come out of the egg as froglet, meaning they completely develop inside the egg. These are called as bush frogs. Again, some one of the species from Western Ghats, Karnataka. Talking about amphibian diversity of India, we have around 375 species of frogs. We have 30 species of toads. We have 2 species of newts, which are found in Himalayas, and we have 40 species of amphibians, which combines both Western Ghats and the Northeast. When we come to our state Karnataka, we have 11 species of Sicilians, we have 8 species of toads, and we have about 87 species of frogs. All of you would have seen the map of Karnataka. So majority of the amphibian species lies in the Western Ghats, where 78 of our district fall under this very green region. So I'll just start talking about the species. So far, do you guys have any questions?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So
We
yeah,
take questions at last. Okay.
yeah. So I'll start briefly introducing you guys to some of the species which can be found very easily in Karnataka. Some of them might not be found around Bangalore, but I'll just explain it as we go through. I've not made it very text intensive because I just want you guys to take back the photos and maybe the story behind it rather than writing down the information. So this is a very common species called as common Indian toad, which you guys would have seen it around your houses. Very common, very loud in monsoon. This is again a toad, which is very common around house. And this is one more toad species only found in places like Kolar and other rocky region, where they completely live around the rocks. They breed in the rocks. They they don't, unlike other frogs, they don't really go into water or let's say soil. They almost completely depend on the rock. They're called as Gunther's toad. If you ever go around Kolara, you would be able to see this species. Not a very big toad, but a very ridgy animal. One more species of toad would be this, which is called Ferguson's toad, a very, very small species of toad, which almost sounds like an insect in the monsoon. It would sound like gir, 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 almost like a grasshopper or a cricket. Again, a common species which is widely spread out in Karnataka. Okay, now I'm gonna get a little more into the species from the Western Ghats. This is a species called as Malabar torrent toad. Not so easy to find species. A very small species of toad which lives in the streams. So you can see the toad here right next to the stream in a very, very loud environment. A special thing about these frogs is that they have something called as aposematic coloration, meaning they have very uh, bright coloration on their body. If they feel threatened, if a predator comes near it, they'll basically jump into the water and display these colors, saying I'm poisonous or dangerous. Don't come near me. Uh, Again, this is a species from Karnataka called Malabar torrent toad. This is found around Madikeri region. You have to slightly go into the forest to look for these. Next one would be Indian skittering frog, which is a very commonly seen frog in most of the lakes around any city. They will be in the water floating almost in the day. When they see something, they can almost skitter on the water, or when they come to the banks, they can skitter into the water. So, hence the name Indian skittering frog. Okay, then we have something called as Indian bullfrog. This is a very common frog around rural areas. If you ever go and ask people in the rural side about the biggest frog they've ever seen, they would say that, oh, in the monsoon from the lake, there'll be really big frogs which come and steal our chicks, or let's say attack our chicks or chicken kind of thing. These are one of the biggest species of frogs in Asia. They can weigh up to 2.5 kilos. They've been seen feeding on chicks, small birds, small snakes, and other frogs. They'll basically eat anything which can fit in their mouth. Again, a very common species in Karnataka. Okay, now coming into slightly more Western Ghats species. This is called as Kotigehara dancing frog. Uh, its name comes from its behavior where they dance. I'll just show a small clip now. Think audio is missing, but I'll be able to show the video. So now it's calling, and there are more frogs around the same area. So we call this behavior as foot flagging behavior, like you guys just saw. They use their back legs, and they do this display with their legs. So here they're almost fighting. So if yeah, I think they'll focus in this video. So there are two of the individuals who are displaying. So at the moment, we think that this is mainly for the territorial behavior. We don't know exactly why they do this behavior. One of the hypothesis was that because they live right next to the water, it might be too loud, so the females might not be able to hear. But here it's quite clearly visible that they also call and do the leg behavior. So again, a very interesting species from Karnataka. You guys might know where Skotigeharas. So the species is named after that place because it was discovered from there. Yeah. Uh, Next, going into the next frog, this is ornate narrow-mouthed frog, a very small species of amphibian which is found throughout Karnataka. These are almost just 1 rupee coin size, very, very small. And we can see the shape of the body, hence the name comes ornate narrow-mouthed frog. Next is a marble balloon frog. So balloon frog means when they feel threatened, they basically take in air and huff up and turn into balloon to scare away the predators. So we have an entire family called balloon frogs. I might speak about few of them here. So again, very blunt face. They are usually this big, and they basically puff up when they feel threatened. And this is a species called as Indian painted frog, very common in most of the cities. You would usually see them in bathrooms. They come into bathrooms through windows mainly for the humidity. Very common among cities, Bangalore, Mysore, and places like that. Again, these also, when they feel threatened, they huff up and become into like almost a ball. Next is granular Fijivaria. They're also called as cricket frogs. You guys might know the creature crickets, which call in the night, the insect. These sound very similar to that. Hence, the name comes cricket frogs. Again, a very, very common species of amphibian found throughout Karnataka. Very small, and in the monsoon, you'd see tons and tons of them dead on the road. Uh, Basically, very active frogs. Next is Bengaluru burrowing frog. We call them burrowing frog because they only come out for for few days to breed in the monsoon. We, in the other time where they go, we have no clue. There is very less information on what they do or where they go. And in the back of their leg, they also have something called as digging apparatus, which they use to dig themselves into the burrow. This is a recently described species from Bangalore, which was described around 3 to 4 years back, from Bengaluru. Again, they're usually this big. Okay. Next is bicolored frog. You can very easily see the two distinct coloration, hence burrowing frog. Sorry, bicolored frog. They're very big species of frog found in Western Ghats. Very mellow call. It's just one note. It's punk punk kind of thing for a very long duration. And their tadpoles are very big and black and very easily spottable. If you go to any kind of dams, you can definitely observe them. And also they display something called as they basically can recognize their uh, kins, meaning when they come out of the eggs, most of them tend to hang out together, most of the tadpoles. And if you go towards Kadasha or those kind of places, usually the locals will say that in the time of monsoon, our rivers go completely black. It's mainly these where they come and basically occupy the entire rivers. Also, recently there have been some studies that they have some kind of stings, like how honeybee have stingers, kind of thing. But it's still very less known, so I'm not gonna dive too deep into it. Next is golden back frogs. Very clearly visible golden coloration, hence the name golden back frog. Again, a very common species from Western Ghats. Very small species, very pointed face. Then this is an leaping frog. Like I said, these don't display the egg, tadpole, all of that. Tadpole, even though tadpole comes out of the egg, they come to the land and they stay in the land. This is a photo of the species. And it's not that they don't get predated outside water. There is a lot of other creatures like spiders and other frogs and small birds which also eat them. Here it is eating an leaping frog tadpole. Again, a very common species of amphibian found in Western Ghats. Then we come to night frogs. Uh, Night frogs, we have quite a few species of night frogs in Karnataka, around 12 to 13 of them. And here is a species called Wayanad night frog, which can become very big in size. And we have one of the smallest species called as uh, a miniature night frog, which is also in the same family. So one of the biggest is also, both of them are in the same family. So in this species, Wayanad night frog, the parents are very protective of eggs. You would basically see them between the rocks. If you go too close, males will come and attack your finger to really show that, oh, these are my eggs, I'm protecting them. This is in the same family. It's called miniature night frog, a very, very small frog found in the Western Ghats. Very hard to find, not a easy species to come across. And this is called as common tree frog. You would have seen it in your bathrooms, washrooms, um, or any humid place. Very common throughout Karnataka and can be found everywhere. Um, Then we have Malabar gliding frog. These are a species which can glide from tree to tree. They mainly spend their time up in the canopy. They only come down in the monsoon for very few days when they breed. They usually lay eggs in this kind of structure in between leaves. The male is sitting on the top and female is the bigger one. They usually lay the egg and leave the nest. And what happens is when the uh, eggs hatch, they directly fall into the water body, so that there is less competition again in the water. Things like small snakes can predate their eggs. Here, by doing this, they won't be able to get into their eggs. So I'll talk about one last species and go to the next one. This is Kudremuka National Park, which some of you might know. And Kudremuka has a very unique species of frog called indigo bush frog. You can see the indigo coloration here. This species is only found in Karnataka. Not only it's found in just Karnataka, but only in one peak, like just the Kudremuka peak. So again, Karnataka has very special species and very colorful species as well. Um, and any question till now?
No, you can carry on.
Okay. I'll go a bit deep into the species and family and how to identify them. Hopefully, please let me know if it gets too much. So this is a common Indian toad. So basic difference between frog and a toad is that toads have dry skin and frogs have wet skin. That's the easiest way to identify. There is definitely exceptions, but that's one of the ways. And the second difference would be most of the toads have this gland called as poison gland, which is not so easily visible in frogs. Uh, Even though this is not visible in all species of toads, it's one of the prominent characters for toads. So, like in this photo, there is dry skin, eyes are on the side. Tympanum means we also have the tympanum, but it's basically to receive the voice. And they have the poison glands and they have very dry skin. And the eggs are like this. You would have seen them around lakes. It's very long, it's almost like a string. Inside there will be very small dots, black dots. So most of the times those are toad eggs. It would look something like this. Yeah, and this is again, like I said, this is a Malabar torrent toad. uh, Again, it's not so visible, but they have poison gland, they have tympanum. But exception is that they don't have dry skin, they have completely wet skin, but you can see the ridges in their body. This is one more picture of the same species. Then is the skittering frog, which is very common around Bangalore, like I said. So to identify amphibians, characters are very important. If you compare this frog and this frog, you can definitely see the difference in eye positioning. So those are some of the characters that we look for when we have to identify. So one of the character for this family would be that they have really long toe because they are webbed, and they have tympanum and eyes are on the side, because these are almost aquatic frogs. Not only they're on the side but slightly on the up, so that when they float, their eyes are not submerged. It's completely up above the water. This is one more picture of the same family, skittering frog. It would, like you can see here, it's not, even though the frog's body is in the water, it's not completely getting its eyes submerged. You'd also see them resting on Vallisneria and other water plant like this in the night. Next is narrow-mouthed frog. These are very small compared to other frogs, so very easily identifiable, and they have a very triangular snout. Yeah, this is one more picture. And their tadpole would look something like this. Most of the other tadpoles would look black and would look like they're feeding on a rock or something. These are almost like a fish. Again, very hard to spot, but once you spot them, it's very easy to identify that it's not a fish and it's a tadpole. A very beautiful looking tadpole as well. And we have something called as cricket frogs, like I mentioned, very small frogs, pointed snout, and they have foldings on the back. It's universal among the species, and they have extremely long toes so that they can jump. This is one more picture of cricket frog. Again, very granular body, very small. They would sound something like this, almost like an insect. So hence the cricket frog. Next, we come to bullfrog. Again, pointed snout, large tympanum, very large leg, and very large foldings. If you see this in the field, it's very easy to identify because they're very big compared to other species. Uh, Again, very common. They're called bullfrogs. They can go up to 2.5 kilos. I have two species of them. I don't want to really go into the species, but yeah, just small information. Then we have dancing frogs. They have very long and slender legs. They have very large eye because these are not nocturnal, these are diurnal, meaning they're active during the day. Unlike most of the frogs you would have seen around the house, they come out in the night or when it rains. These are a little different. They're diurnal, meaning they're active in the day, and you would see them out and active throughout the day. I've already shown the video, so I'll just skip this one. Balloon frogs. Like I said, they huff up to fight predators, so hence the balloon frog. They have very blunt snout, and they have extra folds like this, which is basically extra skin so that when they can puff up. And they have very large mid body, uh, and they have something called as digging apparatus in the back, which is used to dig into the soil. This is one more species called triangular balloon frog from the Western Ghats, Karnataka. A very colorful species. And this is Indian painted frog. Again, like I said, it's a very common species found around Bangalore and all throughout Karnataka, to be honest. Uh, Very easily identifiable, very colorful, and they have they have extra skin and very blunt snout. And burrowing frog. These and cricket frogs could be confused, but the difference is that the eyes are on the side and they're more blunt compared to, they have a blunt snout compared to cricket frogs, and they also have something called as digging apparatus, but to see that you would have to catch them and turn them. So yeah, just blunt snout would be a good character to identify them. And their tadpole would look something like this. Yeah. Then we have golden backed frog. Again, a very uh, common species. They have almost a flat back when they sit. Eyes are on the side and very pointed snout compared to other frogs. They're about uh, 5 to 6 centimeters. We have quite a few species in Karnataka. And this is a fungoid frog, a very colorful frog. And there has been so if you guys know H1N1, they almost made medicine from this frog for the disease, but I don't think they were able to apply it in real world because by the time they found it, already new medicines were found. Again, a very colorful frogs, very common in Western Ghats. Very flat back, meaning when they sit, their back is full flat, and they have multicolor. And we have night frog. They have almost rhombus shaped eyes, very granular body, and they have disc, meaning it's almost like a suction cup when they sit on the rock. Because these are aquatic and semi-aquatic, they need to hold on to something, so they have these suction cups, and when they sit, it basically helps them to hold into the stones or anything they're holding into. And their eyes are pointed almost up, because again, they're aquatic species. Again, these are very slimy as well, if you ever like touch them. But yeah, I'll skip this one as well, because we have already heard the sound. But or I'll just play it one more time. A very nice call. That's a species from little like Castle Rock and Goa kind of patch, and their tadpole would look something like this. Very camouflage. Basically blends into the blends into its environment. You would have to go to Western Ghats to see these species. Tree frog. So again, where usually what I do is I keep it very interactive so that it's easier to talk. But because it's Zoom, I'm not gonna do it. So very pointed snout, very large eye, and they have these backbones which are visible, and they can jump very long distances. And they would lay their eggs inside this. It's called as foam nest. Basically, it's one more kind of liquid which female secretes and male beats it, and it becomes foam-like structure after laying its egg. So eggs are in the middle, foam structure is around the egg. And reason for this is that, let's say some kind of water snake tries to eat the egg. The hypothesis is that this will go into their mouth and it has a distaste, so they would leave the nest and would not feed on the eggs. So yeah, one more interesting character. Then we have bush frogs, which are very small in size. They have very pointed snout, and they lay their eggs outside the water like this. Eggs will develop completely outside, unlike other species. But again, at very high humid places, we don't have these species in, let's say, Mysore or Bangalore. You would have to go into Western Ghats to see these. Again, very small body, pointed snout, and they have webbing in their back leg. And we have gliding frog. We have two species of this in Karnataka, called small gliding frog and Malabar gliding frog. This is a small gliding frog. You have to go to places like Bislegat or Madkeri to see these very, very beautiful small species. Again, characters would be that they have a very flat back, they have pointed snout, they have really well developed webbing in their hand, and it's completely red, so that it helps them glide from place to place. Yeah, this is how they would look. Yeah, this is, yeah, I think I'll stop here now. Like I said, I've taken the 40 minutes. So any questions?
About it, it's a very different talk actually.
Yeah.
Very number of frogs. Usually we identify 2 or 3, but you are showing so many. Uh, uh, it's really very interesting.
Yeah.
What inspires you research about this?
So as a kid, I was really interested in frogs, meaning I would bring in the tadpoles and see them in my aquarium turning into frogs or adults. So I think that motivated me. But afterwards, I think I started to see the decline in amphibians. So it was really inside me that I wanted to know why it's declining and what's really happening. So most of my research is around that areas, meaning I'll maybe explain about one of my research. It's looking at how invasive fish in lakes can affect local amphibian species. We have a species called as African catfish, which is which can be seen everywhere in all the lakes. It's invasive, like I said. One of my research is that looking at how they eat up all the frogs and how they are suffering, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think I'm just interested in them naturally.
But that
Yeah.
interest you are, yes.
No, I have two questions. Question number one is how difficult is the process of data acquisition, whether it is in terms of image acquiring or the nearby ecosystem of the frogs or touts acquiring? That is one question. As a researcher, for
Yeah,
the students, it is helpful.
yeah,
Second question is how it is benefit to humans, these living beings,
yeah,
being more in number or less in number, or what should be optimum number in and around the ecosystem of human what you call habitat.
yeah.
How it is good or bad? What is that?
So,
Thank you.
yeah, to answer your first question, that we still don't know much about amphibians at all, to be honest. So, if I take example of birds or mammals, at least we have a field guide or a book. For amphibians, we still don't have that, and India has around almost close to 500 species now. So we are really back in terms of data. There is a lot of citizen science activities going on where you can take photos and upload it, which will help researchers like me. But still, in terms of accessibility and data, it's very difficult. So there are very few website, and you would have to depend most of your information from research papers, which you have to again download. But soon, I think I can see the gap getting lesser and lesser. So in future, maybe in 5 to 10 years, that will be not be the case. Accessing locality, the problem is most of the amphibians are active in the night, so it becomes very dangerous as well to go out in the night. Also, if you're going alone, let's say not even other people attacking you, there can be things like snakes or other animals, so it gets little less accessible. uh, but again, with a group of people it can be done. In Western Ghats it's usually quite safe to do it around estates and places like that, but again, in order to go into forest you require permits. And to answer your second question, uh, amphibians are bioindicator, meaning they tell you how your ecosystem is doing. Let's say you have a lake next to your house, which has really nice plants, really nice birds coming into it, and if you don't see any species of frogs, it would mean that there is definitely something wrong with the water. So they're really good bioindicators. We don't have an estimate or a ideal number of amphibians or amphibian species to be found around your house, but uh, I would say if you're not seeing amphibians around your houses, it's because of the road kills, meaning uh, our tar roads tend to keep a lot of heat from the sun, and when it rains, naturally the temperature goes down because these are cold-blooded animals. They come on the roads, and hence they die because of the road kills. So we are seeing lesser and lesser number of frogs mainly because of road kills, in my opinion. And second would be we don't have any freshwater bodies. If you take example of Bangalore, there's no lake which is just dependent on rainwater. It's completely sewage and drainage. So it number of amphibians are definitely coming down here. But I think the more scarier part is, let's say, amphibians in the Western Ghats, because of the climate change and because of the heat waves. Like last year, there were very few species that we could observe. I think that is becoming more of a problem than around the houses at the moment. But yeah, I don't think there's any optimal number or optimal species to be found.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers for both questions. Just a general inquisite. Do you have anywhere the frog museum in India or elsewhere? We have a butterfly park in Banerghatta. Many other places they have started. Are there any people or organization or even government
Yeah,
thinking of having such kind of a either museum or what aquarium, whatever you call,
yeah.
like for fish aquarium? Is there anything is there in that direction?
So we
Thought process.
don't exactly have a museum or an aquarium for it, but we have there are a few places in Karnataka where they have done bacteriarium, which means like basically it's like aquarium but for like frogs. But these are in nature. So there are guidebooks and maps available. If you go to these places, you can take these trails, meaning it will be short 400-meter walk, and there'll be different ponds, and you can see different species. So there is one of these is done in near Taj Madkeri, which is functioning, I think. And the second one is near Virajpete. It's in between Virajpete and Madkeri, called Kabin Kadu. There's a place called Honey Valley, which is an estate, and they've made a very big trail and very nice information booklet on that, where you can go into the wild and see them. But yeah, in captivity, there is no museum or zoo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Question is that by seeing the frog, how can we differentiate it's a poisonous or non-poisonous?
So most of the toads are poisonous. You guys would know the difference between poison and venom. Poison means you have to eat it, you have to digest it in order to have effects. Venom would be that you have to get it injected. That none of the amphibians can do. So most of the toads are poisonous, but there is no evidence to prove that Indian species can kill a human being. They can definitely kill or have some kind of effect to your uh, dog or a cat, but to humans they're not dangerous at all. So most of the toads species which you see around your house are poisonous, but nothing will happen to us. So even if you handle them and if you wash your hands, you should be fine. But to answer your question, they have something called as poison glands. So like I showed here, so it will take some time to identify these characters. This one, it's called poison gland. So if you can spot this place, it would mean that it's a poisonous toad. But usually it's not a big thing to worry about.
Thank you.
You told you are working on extension, means extended amphibians. You found any frogs which are not available now?
Extended amphibians meaning?
Means we which we lost.
Like
Any
so so basically, like, local extinction is very common, meaning you have some species, let's say in Bangalore, and they disappear from Bangalore. That is very common. But to claim those, we don't have data from very long. So one of my project was surveying in Mysore, where there was a paper in 1997 where they found some species around Mysore, and I did it after 20 years. But we didn't see that big of a significant difference, because a lot of other species came up, and we didn't see any species going missing. But in the next 10 to 20 years, I think we'll definitely see some species. In Karnataka, if we take, I don't have any evidence or data to claim any certain species, but I definitely it's very understood that the numbers are going down. But in one of my research, number went up. So the population in 2 years went down to 80% among like 15 species, but it didn't go extinct. Yeah.
okay. One message from your side as a young researcher, what you like to share with us regarding this frogs concept?
So message would be, I think it's
No, conservative, bioconservative, like that, conservating concepts.
okay, yeah. So okay, I would say that it's much harder to conserve amphibians compared to a tiger. If you want to conserve tiger, at least you can protect the national park and protect them. It's not like that for amphibians. We all would have to work together, and we have to conserve the species which are around our houses to really conserve amphibians. So I would say that maybe build a pond and support amphibians, and yeah, that would be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really very interesting. Any questions from others? Sapna ma'am, ಏನಾದ್ರೂ questions ಇದೆಯಾ? Okay, I think they are all cleared with their
Mataji,
ಏನಾದ್ರು
but it was a good
questions?
talk.
Okay, okay.
Questions ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, but it was a good talk. ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಒಂಚೂರು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ನಾಲೆಜ್ ಸಿಕ್ತು. ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಬಹಳ ಚಲೋ ಇದ್ದು ರೀ, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ
ma'am.
ಟ್ಯಾಡ್. ಅಮೋಕ್ ಸರ್, ಕಂಗ್ರ್ಯಾಚುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಬಹಳ ಚಂದ ಐತಿ ನಿಮ್ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್. ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಬ್ಲೂಮ್.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amog. It's a very knowledgeable session for us. And it's very interesting and colorful, actually, the pictures what we are seeing. Really, next time when we observe these frogs, now we try to identify the species,
Yeah.
what type of.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time and your knowledge. We are very happy for your session.
Thank you.
Thank you, one and all, for joining us.